What if I told you that the biggest difference between traders who lose money year after year and traders who build lasting wealth has nothing to do with their strategy? Think about it. Thousands of people use the exact same charts, the exact same indicators, and the exact same market data every single day. Yet only a small percentage consistently walk away with profits. Why? Because profitable traders don't just trade differently. They think differently. They see losses differently. They see themselves differently. And until your mindset changes, your results won't. In this video, you're going to discover the 6 mental shifts that separate consistent winners from everyone else. You'll learn how to accept uncertainty without fear, focus on execution instead of money, think in probabilities instead of predictions, detach your ego from every trade, build emotional discipline under pressure, and develop the long-term mindset of a professional trader. If you're tired of making the same costly mistakes and you're ready to start thinking like the traders who survive and thrive in the markets, then stay with me until the very end, because one of these 6 steps could completely change the way you trade forever. Chapter 1. Accept uncertainty. Like a professional, imagine standing in front of your trading screen, your finger hovering over the buy button, your heart beating just a little faster than normal. You tell yourself, this setup looks perfect. This one has to work. But the moment you click, the market moves against you. Instantly, doubt floods your mind. Fear takes over. You start questioning everything, your strategy, your analysis, even yourself. Sound familiar? Let me tell you something. The market didn't betray you. The market didn't single you out. The market simply reminded you of a truth that every profitable trader eventually accepts. Nothing is certain. Nothing. And the day you stop demanding certainty from an uncertain environment is the day your transformation begins. Most traders spend years searching for the perfect strategy because they believe the next indicator, the next course, or the next secret setup will finally eliminate losing trades. But that day never comes. Why? Because the greatest traders in the world lose trades too. The difference is they don't expect perfection. They expect probabilities. They understand that every single trade is only one event in a long series of events. One trade cannot define them. One loss cannot destroy them. One win cannot make them invincible. They have trained their minds to think beyond the immediate outcome. Understand this. The need to be right is one of the most expensive habits a trader can have. Every time you refuse to accept uncertainty, you become emotionally attached to being correct. You move your stop loss because you know the market will come back. You hold losing positions because admitting you're wrong feels like failure. You revenge trade because your ego wants to recover what your emotions lost. And before you realize it, you are no longer trading the market, you are trading your emotions. But profitable traders play a completely different game. They don't ask, will this trade win? They ask, does this trade fit my plan? That simple shift changes everything. Because once your job is to execute instead of predict, fear begins to lose its power. You stop carrying the impossible burden of knowing the future. You stop treating every loss as a personal attack. Instead, you become calm. You become patient. You become objective. The market is no longer your enemy. It becomes your teacher. Every losing trade becomes feedback instead of failure. Every winning trade becomes confirmation of discipline instead of luck. This is the mindset that separates professionals from amateurs. Professionals don't need certainty before they act. They need confidence in their process. That's it. They understand that uncertainty isn't a problem to solve. It's the cost of doing business. Just as a casino doesn't panic after one customer wins a jackpot, a profitable trader doesn't panic after one losing trade. They know the edge plays out over time. They trust the numbers. They trust their discipline. Most importantly, they trust themselves. And when you finally stop fighting uncertainty, something remarkable happens. The market stops controlling your emotions, and for the first time, you begin controlling yourself. But accepting uncertainty is only the first transformation, because the next mental shift forces you to abandon something even more dangerous than fear, your obsession with making money. Step 2, focus on process, not money. Close your eyes for a moment and picture the trader you were the last time you opened a position. Be honest. Before you click the buy or sell button, what was the first thought that entered your mind? Was it, can I execute my plan with discipline? Or was it, how much money can I make from this trade? That single question reveals more about your future than any chart ever will. This is where everything changes. The moment money becomes your primary focus, your decision-making begins to deteriorate. You start seeing dollars instead of opportunities. You start forcing trades that aren't really there because your mind is chasing profits instead of following rules. You increase your position size because you imagine what the gains could buy. Then the market hesitates, your emotions explode, and suddenly every candle feels like a personal attack on your financial future. Let me tell you something. The market doesn't reward people who need money. It rewards people who can remain disciplined whether money is coming in or going out. That's why profitable traders think differently. They don't wake up asking, how much can I earn today? They wake up asking, can I execute my edge perfectly today? It sounds simple, but it is one of the hardest mental shifts you will ever make. Because your brain has been conditioned to chase immediate rewards. Society celebrates results. Your friends ask how much you made. Social media is filled with screenshots of giant profits. Nobody posts the boring reality of following a trading plan for weeks with complete emotional control. But that boring reality is exactly where consistent wealth is built. Understand this: the process is under your control, the outcome is not. You can control whether you wait patiently for your setup. You can control whether you respect your risk. You can control whether you follow your exit rules without hesitation. But you cannot control what the market does after you enter. When you confuse these two things, frustration becomes inevitable. Every loss feels unfair because you believe perfect effort should guarantee perfect results. It doesn't. Professional traders understand that success is measured by execution, not by individual outcomes. Imagine a basketball player taking the perfect shot. The form is flawless. The timing is perfect. The ball still rims out. Was it a bad shot? Of course not. It was excellent execution with an uncertain outcome. Trading works the same way. A perfectly executed trade can lose, and a poorly executed trade can win. The amateur judges the result. The professional judges the decision. That difference changes everything. Once you begin celebrating disciplined execution instead of profitable outcomes, your confidence becomes stable. It no longer depends on whether the last trade was green or red. It comes from knowing you honored your process. And that confidence cannot be taken away by a temporary losing streak. Ironically, the less obsessed you become with making money, the more capable you become of making it. Because now your decisions are driven by logic instead of emotion, by preparation instead of desperation, by discipline instead of hope. This is the quiet transformation that most people never see. They only notice the profits years later. But those profits were born from thousands of disciplined decisions made when no one was watching. And once your attention shifts from money to process, you become ready for the next breakthrough. The realization that no single trade matters nearly as much as you think it does. Step 3. Think in probabilities, not predictions. Have you ever noticed how one losing trade can make you forget 10 winning ones? Or how one big winner can suddenly convince you that you finally mastered the market? That's the trap. Your mind is wired to give enormous importance to the most recent outcome, even when that outcome means almost nothing. This is exactly where countless traders lose their edge. They become emotionally attached to individual trades instead of the bigger picture. Let me tell you something that may completely change the way you see the market. A single trade has no real meaning. Read that again in your mind. A single trade has no real meaning. It is simply one event in a long sequence of events. Imagine flipping a weighted coin that lands on heads 60% of the time. Even with a statistical advantage, you could still flip tails 5 times in a row. Would that mean the edge disappeared? Of course not. It would simply mean randomness is doing what randomness does. Trading works the exact same way. Every profitable strategy experiences losing streaks. Every edge goes through periods where nothing seems to work. The amateur sees those losses and begins changing strategies, adding indicators, jumping into new systems, searching for another shortcut. The professional stays grounded because they understand probabilities. They understand that consistency comes from repeating the same high-quality decisions over and over again, not from chasing perfect outcomes. This is why successful traders don't obsess over what happens next. They focus on what happens over the next 50 trades, the next 100 trades, or even the next 1,000 trades. Their confidence comes from the law of large numbers, not from hope. They know their edge doesn't need to win every time. It only needs to perform over time. That realization is incredibly freeing. Suddenly, every loss becomes easier to accept because it is no longer an exception. It is simply part of the business model. Think about a professional poker player. They can make the correct decision and still lose the hand because probability doesn't guarantee immediate rewards. Yet they continue making mathematically sound decisions because they know those decisions create long-term profitability. Trading demands the same emotional maturity. You are not being paid for predicting the next candle. You are being paid for consistently executing a statistical advantage. Understand this. Every time you ask yourself, is this trade going to work? You are asking the wrong question. Instead, ask, does this trade fit my proven edge? That single shift transforms anxiety into confidence. Confidence no longer comes from certainty. It comes from repetition. It comes from knowing that even if this trade fails, the next one or the one after that may not. The edge unfolds across time, not in isolated moments. This is why profitable traders remain calm while others panic. They aren't emotionally invested in one outcome because they know the story isn't written by one trade. It's written by hundreds of disciplined decisions stacked on top of each other. Every correctly executed trade becomes another brick in the foundation of long-term success. Every emotional decision removes one of those bricks. The question is no longer whether you can predict tomorrow. The question is whether you can trust your process long enough for probabilities to work in your favor. And once you truly embrace that mindset, another invisible enemy begins to reveal itself. An enemy that has been quietly influencing every decision you've ever made. That enemy is your own ego. Step 4. Detach your ego from results. Here's a question that most traders never ask themselves because the answer is uncomfortable. When a trade loses, what actually hurts? Is it the money or is it your pride? Think about it carefully. For many people, the pain doesn't come from the financial loss alone. It comes from the feeling of being wrong. It comes from the story they tell themselves. I should have known better. I'm not good enough. Why does this always happen to me? In that moment, the trade stops being a business decision and becomes a judgment of your identity. This is where ego quietly takes control. It doesn't arrive shouting. It whispers. It tells you to prove the market wrong. It tells you to hold a losing trade a little longer because turning it into a winner will protect your pride. It tells you to double your position because admitting defeat feels unbearable. It tells you that your intelligence is measured by whether the market agrees with you. Let me tell you something. The market has no interest in validating your ego. It doesn't know your name. It doesn't care how much experience you have. It doesn't reward confidence, and it doesn't punish insecurity. It simply moves according to forces far greater than any individual trader. The sooner you accept that, the freer you become. Profitable traders understand a powerful truth. They are not their last trade. A winning trade does not make them a genius. A losing trade does not make them a failure. They separate their identity from their performance. That emotional distance gives them clarity when everyone else is overwhelmed by emotion. Think about a surgeon. If one procedure becomes more difficult than expected, does the surgeon throw away years of training and declare themselves incompetent? Of course not. They analyze the situation, learn from it, and prepare for the next patient. Traders must develop the same mindset. Every trade is information. Every outcome is feedback. Nothing more, nothing less. The moment you stop attaching your self-worth to your trading results, something incredible happens. Fear begins to disappear because there is no longer anything personal at stake. You no longer need every trade to prove you're smart. You no longer chase perfect predictions to impress yourself or anyone else. You simply follow your plan. You execute your edge. You accept whatever outcome follows. That is real confidence. Not confidence that says, I know this trade will win, but confidence that says, no matter what happens, I will respond with discipline. There is a huge difference. Ego demands certainty. Discipline accepts reality. Ego refuses to admit mistakes. Discipline learns from them. Ego wants applause. Discipline wants improvement. Ask yourself honestly which voice has been guiding your decisions. Because every time you refuse to take a planned loss, every time you move a stop loss out of hope, every time you revenge trade after being proven wrong, your ego is making decisions that your trading plan never approved. Understand this. The goal is not to eliminate your ego completely. The goal is to stop letting it sit in the trader's chair. Your rules belong there. Your process belongs there. Your discipline belongs there. Once your ego steps aside, your mind becomes calm enough to make objective decisions. And when your identity is no longer tied to the outcome of a single trade, you unlock something far more valuable than confidence. You unlock emotional stability. But even emotional stability is only the beginning, because the next step is learning how to remain disciplined when fear, greed, and temptation are pulling you in every direction at once. Step 5. Master emotional discipline. Picture yourself in the middle of a trade that is moving against you. Your palms are sweating, your eyes are locked on every tick, your heart is racing, and a voice inside your head keeps saying, do something, anything. In that moment, it feels impossible to sit still. It feels like action is the answer. But this is the moment that separates profitable traders from everyone else. The difference is not intelligence, it is not experience. It is emotional discipline. Understand this. Your emotions are not your enemy. Fear exists to protect you. Greed exists because your brain craves reward. Frustration appears when reality doesn't match your expectations. These emotions are normal. The problem begins when you allow them to make decisions for you. The market has a strange way of exposing whatever you haven't mastered within yourself. If you are impatient, the market will tempt you with mediocre setups. If you are fearful, it will convince you to exit great trades too early. If you are greedy, it will whisper that just a little more profit is waiting if you ignore your plan. And if you are angry after a loss, it will offer you the perfect opportunity to revenge trade. It showed you your fear, it showed you your weakness, it showed you the truth. Let me tell you something. Every emotional mistake follows the same pattern. First comes the feeling. Then comes the justification. You tell yourself, this trade is different, the stop loss is too tight, I'll just risk a little more this time, I'll make it back with one good trade. Your emotions create a story, and your mind starts believing it. But profitable traders recognize this pattern before it controls them. They pause, they breathe, they return to their rules, because they understand that discipline is not something you use when it's easy. Discipline only matters when your emotions are demanding the opposite. Think about an elite athlete training before sunrise while everyone else is asleep. They don't train because they feel motivated every morning. They train because their commitment is stronger than their feelings. Trading requires that same level of commitment. Your plan must become more powerful than your impulses. Your rules must become louder than your emotions. This is why professionals rely on routines instead of moods. They know exactly how much they will risk before entering a trade. They know where they will exit if they are wrong. They know when to stop trading for the day. These decisions are made while they are calm, not while they are emotional. That's the secret. The best decisions are made before emotions have a chance to interfere. Every time you follow your rules, despite feeling fear, you strengthen your discipline. Every time you resist the urge to revenge trade, you strengthen your discipline. Every time you accept a planned loss without changing your strategy, you strengthen your discipline. These small victories may not feel exciting, but they are quietly transforming your identity. You are no longer becoming someone who reacts. You are becoming someone who responds with intention. Over time, that discipline compounds just like money does. One disciplined trade becomes 10. 10 become 100. Eventually, disciplined behavior becomes automatic. You no longer have to force yourself to do the right thing because it has become part of who you are. And that is when the market begins to feel different. Not because the market changed, but because you did. Yet there is one final mental shift that ties everything together. One perspective that allows you to rise above the daily noise. And think like someone who isn't chasing quick profits, but building something that can last a lifetime. Step 6, think long-term like a business owner. Imagine waking up tomorrow and discovering that your last trade no longer matters. The win doesn't matter. The loss doesn't matter. The emotional roller coaster is gone. Instead, all you care about is whether your trading business is becoming stronger month after month, year after year. That is the final transformation. That is how profitable traders think. They stop acting like gamblers chasing excitement and start thinking like business owners building something that will outlive today's emotions. Most traders enter the market hoping for a life-changing trade. Professionals enter the market looking for a lifetime of disciplined execution. There is a world of difference between those two mindsets. A gambler asks, how much can I make today? A business owner asks, how can I protect and grow my capital over the next 5 years? One is obsessed with instant gratification. The other is obsessed with long-term sustainability. Let me tell you something. Every successful business has expenses. A restaurant pays rent. A manufacturer buys raw materials. A shipping company pays for fuel. None of those business owners panic because expenses exist. They understand those costs are part of generating future profits. Trading is no different. Losing trades are not personal failures. They are business expenses. They are the cost of participating in a probabilistic environment. The problem begins when you start treating every loss like a financial emergency instead of a planned operating cost. That mindset creates fear. Fear creates emotional decisions. Emotional decisions destroy consistency. But once you begin thinking like a business owner, everything changes. You stop measuring success by today's profit and start measuring success by the quality of your decision making. You begin keeping detailed records. You review your performance honestly. You identify patterns instead of making excuses. You stop asking whether the market is unfair and start asking whether your process can be improved. That is growth. That is professionalism. The greatest traders understand something that beginners often ignore. Capital is inventory. Your emotional energy is inventory. Your confidence is inventory. Protecting those assets is just as important as finding winning trades. That's why professionals never risk everything on one opportunity. They know there will always be another trade tomorrow, next week, and next month. Patience becomes their competitive advantage. Consistency becomes their greatest weapon. Understand this. Wealth is rarely created by one spectacular moment. It is built through thousands of ordinary moments handled with extraordinary discipline. One well-managed trade, one respected stop loss, one patient decision to wait instead of forcing action. Those moments seem insignificant on their own, but together they create something powerful. They create trust. Trust in your process. Trust in your edge. Trust in yourself. Think back to where this journey began. First, you learned to accept uncertainty instead of fearing it. Then you shifted your attention from money to process. You learned to think in probabilities instead of predictions. You separated your identity from your results. You developed the emotional discipline to follow your rules even when your feelings demanded otherwise. Now, all of those lessons come together under one philosophy. You are no longer trying to win every trade. You are trying to become the kind of trader who can still be thriving years from now. That is the real victory. Because markets will change, strategies will evolve, technology will improve. But a disciplined mind, a patient perspective, and a long-term commitment to excellence will always remain your greatest edge. And the moment you begin thinking like that, you stop chasing success because you have finally become the person capable of creating it consistently.